Good morning. Uh, Thanks for tuning in to our Facebook Live. This is Marylee with United Stroke Alliance, where our nonprofit business focuses on the prevention, awareness, and recovery from stroke. So I'm glad to see you this morning. Today, we're going to be talking with our CEO, Larry Scher, and feel free to comment or ask questions in the notes, and I will try and monitor that because I am the videographer today and the interviewer today. So anyway, so let's get started. Larry Scher and I have worked together for over 30 years, and I just thought it would be fun for us to sit down and talk how it began, why it's working. So I'm happy this morning to be visiting with Larry Scher. He had a little trouble when I first told him, like, why? And I said, you're the CEO. So
she always says that.
He's the wannabe CEO, the CEO.
Well, it was definitely a hand, scissors, rock thing, and I lost. So I got to be CEO.
Got to be CEO. So I just want to start out, tell us a little bit about where you grew up, where you went to school, and a little bit about your family, and then we'll kind of get into some other things.
Good morning, everybody. It's my first premier event this morning, so I'm trying to figure out which side is my best side. That's still under debate, so I'll just give it to you just the way it is. So I grew up here in the Peoria area, around Metamora, Spring Bay area of central Illinois here, and went to school at Bradley and did some traveling. I was in the military for a while, and ended up coming back within about 5 miles of my home that I grew up in at the farm, and have 2 great kids, and of course their kids now is 44 and 41 years old, so
Whoa.
They both have grandkids that we enjoy totally. It's just that they're quite a distance away between Milwaukee, Wisconsin and Missoula, Montana, so our efforts all the time is trying to get to see them, but Facebook and Skype and all the technology advances that we have now make it a little easier for us to keep connected. So that's a little bit about my background. Anything more specifically you would like?
No, not right now.
So.
I want you to tell the story of how we first met, which we just discussed before we came on live, was in 1987. So how did we meet? How did that all work out?
Well, just to point out, 1987, that is 33 years that we have known each other, and a great part of that, we actually worked together. So,
and I commented before we started that 33 years, that's longer than both my marriages, or either of my marriages.
so our business marriage obviously has been a benchmark for both of us. But I had a company back in the 80s, I started, called Resource Management Services in 1983. And it was a consulting company, and it was from scratch. It was an idea, and it was specifically towards helping small, medium-sized businesses with their employee relations efforts, whether it's training programs for them or employee counseling programs for the companies. And over the years, it grew to a point where I needed some support. I needed a Marylee, and guess who I found? I found a Marylee. And at the time, she was single mom raising 2 boys, and as it turned out, it's like, hey, I've got a job, let's see what it will work out, and it did. And we worked together until 1995 when I sold the company, and she stayed on at Resource Management Services, but I went on to do other things and start other companies and projects and things. So it was one of those things that when you work with someone from the beginning, it's somewhat, I think, very special by the fact that she would be able to finish my sentences before I knew what I was going to say. And obviously that kind of working relationship really created a bigger, better company. It created a relationship that's been lifelong for the both of us. So it wasn't until Well, after you did your first camp?
Yeah, after you left and I stayed, we always stayed connected.
Right.
We always,
Especially when John was sick.
and when John was sick, and
Yeah.
and then we'd have lunch from time to time.
Right. Right.
And so we always stayed connected. It might have only been 2 or 3 times a year, but we always stayed connected and stayed in touch. And yes, and you were there in in all of what we were all doing when John was so sick and after the stroke and everything.
So, at the time, I had a elder care business, providing services for working adult children to help their parents in whatever location they were throughout the country. But when we had lunch together, we talked about what each of us was doing, and Marylee mentioned about this idea she had about doing a camp, and she did the first one in 2004, and from her affect of how she was describing the impact it had on that first camp, it's like, she was quite excited about this, I could tell. It's like, yeah, things continued to go on, we kept meeting, and the more she got excited about what she was doing, and she was still working part-time there at Resource Management Services, and still doing this, and it's like, it started going beyond, I think, what she had originally anticipated.
You know what? One of the kind of pivotal moments that I think where you inspired me was after the first couple of years, we had heard from so many people all across the country. So we were trying, my sister and I and the little group that we had together, we were trying to figure out how to bring anybody who wanted to go to camp to this little camp in central Illinois, because in my mind that was what we were doing. So I want to throw that out there because it was a pivotal time in my life, truly a pivotal moment in my life, when Larry said, let's have lunch, I've got an idea, and then you take it away from there.
Well, I mean, first of all, you had to look at where we were at that point. You know, we didn't have that many camps. It was a new camp, it was 4 camps, and it's like 3 things occurred to me. One is that I've never been involved in anything that grew that fast without any kind of advertising or promotion. This thing was growing by itself. She had no budget. There was no such thing as a budget at that time.
No money.
And no money, no resources, no budget, but yet it was growing. And it's like, that's phenomenal. So I says, you know, maybe I should sell my business and maybe we could work together and make a bigger thing out of this. And so that's what we started to do, and that was in 2005.
We had lunch in 2006, late 2006. We filed for the nonprofit in 2007. Yeah, early 2007.
Well, it went back to my background.
Yeah. My next question. Got it.
What is your next question?
How did you have the idea of the camp travel?
Let me answer that for you. Well, when I got out of the service, one of the things I wanted to do was to travel with a group called Up With People. And that was the time Bonnie and I were just out of the service. We had recovered from a very serious car accident that she was almost paralyzed. And at that point, it's like, you know, traveling with Up With People gave me some ideas of how we could actually develop Retreat and Refresh Stroke Camp, because Up With People, we went around and we were in different communities, and we had sponsors in each of those communities sponsoring us for a show or activities. And it's like, well, why can't we do that with Stroke Camp? Why couldn't we find sponsors in communities and actually go into the communities where people live and actually do 2 things? One is to create more exposure for understanding stroke, and number 2, providing support for those survivors and caregivers in the community. And that's really where we got started, and I think it's really been a legitimate, valid approach, because if you look at what we've been able to accomplish in the last 15 years, that model has worked very well, of finding sponsors, working with communities, developing exposure for understanding stroke, educating people, and I think has worked out quite well. But it's been all my experiences in the 3 years we traveled with people and understanding and working with sponsors literally around the country.
So we started out with camps, and then we did expand into other businesses, other services, which led us to United Stroke Alliance. And you want to give a little background about how, how listening to our campers and the time we had in those weekends with campers led us to want to do more.
Being at a weekend with survivors and caregivers gave us a great opportunity to listen to their challenges, their triumphs. But one of the things that we kept hearing from survivors and caregivers was the need to educate their friends, relatives, neighbors, their communities about stroke. Because a lot of people, even to this day, do not understand stroke. So in 2009, that's when we created Strikeout Stroke. And that was working with minor league and major league baseball and using Act Fast to educate people about the signs of stroke. Well, I think that worked fine, and we got into 21 major league baseball teams. At 1 year at our peak, we were probably doing 100 events, 100 strikeout stroke events across the country. And many of these places we were not doing camps either. Yeah. So it was like a whole new population of people that we were working with. One of the things I found to be difficult was to make the connection between what we were doing at camp and what we were doing with Strikeout Stroke. That was a big bridge that I had to create to help people understand why, if you're doing weekend camps for survivors and caregivers, what does it have to do with Strikeout Stroke? And we found that to be true with our 5th grade education program called YES, Youth Education on Stroke, and a couple other programs. We were doing these other programs all under Retreat and Refresh Stroke Camp, and it was sometimes hard to explain what's the connection. So several years ago, we brought our board together and they came up with the idea we need an umbrella organization to cover all the things that you are doing, whether it was Retreat and Refresh Stroke Camp, Youth Education on Stroke, Strikeout Stroke, Stronger Than a Stroke, etc., etc. And that's when the idea of United Stroke Alliance was born, of having all these programs and services under one umbrella called United Stroke Alliance. So that has served us well in helping us to explain the programs that we do in addition to Retreat and Refresh Stroke Camp. Was that good?
Was an excellent.
Was that good?
Excellent,
Was that good?
excellent,
Okay.
excellent.
A plus, okay, I get A plus.
You get an A plus. Kathy Doak said hi.
Hi, Kathy.
She thinks we rock.
Oh, you do too as well. I still remember my visit to you in Florida.
Okay.
That was pure gold. Thank you for that opportunity. I wish I could get to see you, hopefully soon.
The memories. Oh my gosh.
Oh, yes.
We'll both be puddles if we talk about the memories. This is obscure. You're not a fan of obscure questions, but why do you think we work so well together? Why do you think it has worked for us in the working together over the years?
Is that a trick question?
Yeah, psychological.
Oh, man.
Because I know you love psychology.
I know. Why have we worked so well together? Well, I think it's a perfect example. You don't know what I'm going to say, do you?
I'm nervous. I'm actually a nervous wreck that I asked that question now.
I think it goes back to opposites attract each other. Not that we're that extreme opposite, but we have different talents that we bring to the table. I mean, you pretty much are the heart and face of Stroke Camp. And I just come along and maybe I've got some ideas that might be helpful, but both of us are committed to helping other people. And whether it's our upbringing in small town America or our experiences that we had in life, well, both of us and bottom line, we wanna make things better.
Mhm.
And we're quite willing to do about anything to
For
make
very
that.
little pay.
And to make that work, and it's like, obviously the good Lord's blessed us in being able to do this.
Mhm.
And it's like, you know, when I'm done with my career life, it's like, what's the best job you ever had? It's the job I got right now, so.
Oh, thank you, wow, okay.
So, how'd I do?
You did really well.
Was that good? Okay.
You did really well. Yeah, and to follow up on that, we've joked about, and people who know me well know us well, and we sometimes joke about this, with Larry's the idea person. And it hardly a week goes by that there isn't, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And I'm always amazed, oh, here comes an ambulance if you hear that.
Not for us.
Not for us, we're good. I've always been impressed with this creative mind that he has. Now, is every idea a good one and a perfect one? Does every idea work? Probably not.
No, I'll admit that.
But you've got to start somewhere. And so, and I'm a person who doesn't think creatively on the front side, but give me a nugget and I can run with it. You know, give me, I mean, when the first camp, my sister had done camps for kids with cystic fibrosis, and I helped with those for years. And so when the idea about stroke camp came about, it's like, oh, we did that with the cystic fibrosis kids, let's alter it and adapt it and make it work for our population. So I do okay with a nugget of something to start with, but he's the one that comes up with the ideas, and sometimes it's an idea and we alter it and we tweak it, but that, you know, because I was stuck on thinking, how are we going to bring everybody that wants to come to camp to Illinois when he took it, and how many camps were we going to max out? We got to talk about this. There was a point about 2008 or 9.
Yes, I love this.
And our goal was how many camps?
I don't know.
It was 15. 15. We thought we could do 15 camps a year. We thought we had figured out a way to do 15 camps a year. And Larry said,
I don't remember what I said. What did I say?
we could do lots more than that.
Well, yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And in my mind, I'm like, it was like, I didn't see the how. But I've learned since then the how is none of my business, because if you let go of how am I going to do this, and you let go of micromanaging the process, the universe is abundant and brings in and gives you everything that you need. So our biggest year was 28 or 29 camps.
Mm-hmm.
And if we grow beyond that, which hopefully we will after COVID, I'm okay with that. I think we figured out how we might make that happen. So I kind of, in a mindset, stood in my own way. And when I let go of that, because for a couple of years we would have 3 camps going on the same weekend, 3 teams of our wonderful volunteers that took off, and away we went. We had 3 camps and 3 separate weekends, which answers the question that people always ask: do you go to every camp, Marylee? Heavens no, Marylee can't go to every camp, but I go to as many as I can. And we're sad that COVID took its toll this year. We have a number of camps scheduled for next year, and we are hoping that there will be some things that will happen that will make that possible for us to kick it back up next year. I have everything all organized in the warehouse, ready to go.
I think an important point needs to be made, though. It's like last few years we've been discussing how to create more on social media. I mean, but we were so busy doing 30 camps. Mm-hmm. It never got done.
Right.
You know, it's like, yeah, we got to do this. We got to do this. We got to get more on Facebook. We got to do this. It never happened, quite frankly. And the COVID situation has created the time for us to do exactly what we are doing at this moment in time.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, COVID has really changed things for us regarding camp, but it's created opportunity for us to create a whole social media campaign that was going to be released. Do they know about that yet?
I don't know what we're gonna say.
You bastard, Cookie John.
Oh, no, I haven't talked about that at all.
Okay. So there's a lot of things that we are doing in a virtual nature that we would never ever had the opportunity or time to do that because, we're not doing camps.
We were busy traveling. Mhm.
So now we have that time and we're converting that energy into social media, to Facebook community, and other things that you'll be seeing coming up soon that I think has turned out to be sort of a
Oh, it's a blessing in disguise.
lemon to lemonade type thing.
Absolutely.
And I think
absolutely.
that's been sort of our modus operandi, quite frankly.
Mhm.
Door shuts here, we'll figure out another way to do it.
Mhm.
And it's like, put us together, we'll come up with something.
Mhm. Absolutely. Is there anything else you'd like to say to our audience? I'm gonna swipe the screen and see if there's any questions that came up, but anything you'd like to say before I wrap things up?
Well, I give thanks to Marylee for really taking the lead on our social media efforts, because if you know me and my level of technology, you would know we would not be doing this if it was up to me. So I can be very supportive, and I encourage Marylee to keep up the good work, because we've got over 1,000 followers now.
Almost 1,100.
1,100,
Mhm.
and it keeps growing all the time. But glad she's doing it, not me, because it wouldn't get done. So thank you.
And it feeds my need to be connected with people, even though it's kind of a one-way connection. Much of the time, it still is a connection, and so that has helped me with the isolation, and the isolation and loneliness. In fact, we sometimes joke about that with our fellow survivors and caregivers who, when COVID hit, those first couple of months when everybody was going on and on about isolation and loneliness, and those of us that have been through that critical journey of post-stroke, we know how to stay home and isolate, because that's what we had to do. It's just a matter of kind of getting back to that point for a while. But this, being able to connect with everybody has kind of helped me through those times as well. So thank you, Larry, for your time. He wasn't so sure he was excited about this, but thank you very much for your insight. And for
I'm
your
the
time.
epitome of excitement, as you can see right now.
He is. Okay, thanks for tuning in. We're gonna call it a wrap and go on to our next project for the day. We'll be in touch.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks.